New York, 9:06 a.m. Manhattan, Financial District. People in business suits rush toward skyscrapers. Coffee shops buzz with orders. The air smells of asphalt and fresh pastry. But in just a few minutes, everything will change. A group of people in suits enters the massive Dominion Trust Bank building. At first glance, clients, maybe lawyers. But once the doors close, they pull out weapons. On the floor. Everyone down. The voice commands confidently, calmly, like it's not the first time. There are 6 of them. All in black. Masks. Body armor. Perfect synchronization. Everyone knows their role. At the head, Carl. His eyes, cold, almost lifeless. His movements, precise. He doesn't rush. On the contrary, he watches. Like a director filming a scene he already knows by heart. No sudden moves. No heroics, and everyone stays alive, he says softly, almost gently. While the guards are disarmed and the hostages gathered in the conference room, the group begins sealing the exits. Isolation. The signal is jammed. At 9:17, the panic button is triggered. Minutes later, the police arrive. And 5 minutes after that, Detective Frank Ross. He's not the kind to tolerate nonsense. 42 years old. Wrinkles on his face. A deep voice. Eyes like a hunter's. Once, he caught a serial killer after sitting in a stakeout for 3 days. Now, he's standing in front of a bank that looks like a fortress. Who's in charge? He asks an officer. They named one, Carl. But something's off. They're not making demands. They're not in a hurry. Like they're waiting for something. Frank frowns. Then it's not about the money. He picks up the radio. Carl, this is Detective Ross. I'm here to talk. We don't want anyone getting hurt. And at that moment, the radio crackles. Perfect, Frank. Glad it's you. We've been waiting for you. Silence. The detective clenches his jaw. His heart tightens. Because he knows that voice. But from where? Frank stands frozen. The voice on the radio leaves no doubt. Carl knows him. And not just knows him. It's personal. Did you hear that? Asks the police captain beside him. Frank nods, eyes fixed on the bank entrance. Yeah. But I need to confirm one thing. What is it? That the past I buried didn't just decide to come back. Inside the bank, Carl walks among the hostages. One of the women begins to cry. He leans toward her, places a hand on her shoulder. It's going to be okay. Just don't be a hero. We're not here for you. The robbers set up portable cameras. A masked hacker enters the server room. His name is Roy. Thin. Wiry. Handshaking, but his fingers fly across the keyboard like mad. Signals jammed. Cameras are looped. We've got 2 hours, Roy says. Carl nods. That's all we need. While the police establish a perimeter, another meeting is taking place in the bank's executive office. A tall woman walks into the room, wearing a dark blue coat. Subtle makeup. Dark hair pulled into a bun. A single black leather glove, on her left hand only. This is Margot. The intermediary. A manipulator. A crisis professional, but not of the official kind. You called me because you know you won't survive this without me, she says, sitting down. The bank's chairman, grey-haired and nervous, nods. If they find Vault 7, it's over. Calm down. They are not here for the money. They're here for the truth. But I'll stop it. Margot smiles. If, of course, I get everything I ask for. Outside, Frank receives a file. Carl. Real name, Carl Edwardson. Once, a war veteran. Then the special agent. Then he vanished. File sealed. Access restricted. And one photo. Frank looks at it. A young Carl. Smiling. Military base in the background. Standing beside him, Frank himself. 20 years ago. What are you planning, Carl? The detective whispers. And then the radio crackles again. Do you remember Baghdad, Frank? That day? We made a choice. But only one of us paid for it. Inside the bank, a heavy silence hangs in the air. The hostages no longer scream or cry. Fear is slowly turning into dull submission. Carl stands by the window, watching the street. Is he still out there? Asks one of the robbers. Yes, Carl replies. And he's still pretending he doesn't know why we're here. Meanwhile, at police headquarters, Frank receives a confidential call. On the line, an old contact from the CIA. You weren't supposed to get that file, she says. And yet, I'm holding it in my hands. Then listen carefully. Carl disappeared after the Iraq mission. Officially, dead. Unofficially, turned into a tool in someone else's hands. Whose? The ones who funded Dominion Trust. That's why he's there. He's not stealing. He's exposing the truth. Frank closes his eyes for a moment. What happened in Iraq is coming back here. Back inside the bank, Carl approaches the door to Vault 7. Roy, he says. Open it. This isn't just a safe, Carl. It's multi-layered access. Biometrics. Voice verification. Even body temperature detection. And I'm halfway through. He smiles. Good. Keep going. The hostages glance around nervously. One of them, a man in an expensive suit, crawls closer to the door and quietly pulls a phone from his sock. He manages to send one brief message. Just one word, 7. At that moment, Margot receives the message. She's sitting in a black limousine, staring at a tablet displaying the bank's layout. They're almost there, she says into the phone. If they open that vault, everything burns. I know. Which is why it's time to change the game. She ends the call, puts on her glasses, and steps out. Her heels click against the asphalt as she approaches the police line. Frank spots her. What are you doing here, Margot? Saving your life, Frank. And not just yours. He eyes her with suspicion. You always played both sides. Because from the middle, you see everything clearly. Margot steps closer, whispers. If Carl gets to Vault 7, people in this city will start falling like dominoes. Frank clenches his fists. Then tell me the truth. What's behind that vault door? Margot pauses. Her voice is low and sharp. Documents on war crimes. Signatures. And your name is one of them. Frank says nothing. His gaze, glassy. Margot's words shatter something deep inside. Something he had buried for years. You're lying, he manages to say. I don't play emotions, Frank, Margot answers calmly. I'm just warning you. If Carl brings those documents into the public eye, not just you, but dozens of names will disappear from life. Forever. Frank steps aside. Takes out a cigarette. His hands tremble. He remembers that day. Iraq. A Black Ops mission. No flags. A dirty deal with locals. Promises never meant to be kept. And the ones who didn't make it till morning. Carl wanted to speak out. But Frank stopped him. With an order. With a shot to trust. Meanwhile, inside the bank, Roy finishes the hack. It's done, he says. But the vault will only open for 1 minute. And only once. Carl steps forward. Opens the heavy steel door. Before him, a dark chamber, like a bunker. On the table, several black cases. Inside each, folders with seals, flash drives, archives, audio recordings. But the main one, a folder marked, Operation Dust Veil. There it is, Carl whispers. The truth we paid for. But just then, an explosion from the other side of the bank. The wall shakes. Alarms blare. One of the robbers drops, sniper shot. Ambush! Someone yells. Carl grabs the case. Orders Roy to move out. Radio chatter, they're breaching. We're pulling back. Carl approaches the hostages. He tosses the handcuff key to the man with the phone. In 2 minutes, you'll all be free. But first, listen. He turns on a speaker. An audio recording plays. Familiar voices. One of them, Frank's. We'll do it and sign it. This isn't our war. It's just business. No one will ever know. And if they do, we are heroes. History is written by the winners. The recording cuts off. Carl shuts it down. This is just the beginning, he says. The world needs to know who you called heroes. Outside, Frank receives a message they've got the case. Using the service tunnel. He grabs his weapon. No one gets out. Margot places a hand on his shoulder. If you stop him now, you'll destroy yourself too. And you know it. But Frank isn't listening anymore. Because for him, this is no longer about truth. It's personal. Carl, Roy, and 2 other robbers descend into the maintenance tunnel beneath the building. The walls are damp. Narrow passages. The ceiling cracked with old bricks breaking through. The light flickers weakly. This is the shortest path to the old exit through the metro ventilation, Roy says. But if they track us, chances are 0. Carl doesn't answer. He clutches the case tightly, like a child. This isn't money. It's an explosion. An informational one. And he has to deliver it alive. As they move through the tunnel, distant gunfire echoes behind them. A smoke grenade goes off. One of the robbers stays behind to cover the escape. Go. I'll hold them. He shouts. Carl stops for a moment. Looks back. Then moves on. No hesitation. It has to be this way. On the surface, Frank leads a SWAT team through a service entrance. He knows this tunnel. Used it once, chasing arms dealers. But this time, it's different. You're not going to catch. You're going to bury, Margot says behind him. I'm going to stop a disaster. Lies. You're going so he doesn't speak. Frank stops. His eyes hard. If that recording goes to the press, my hands are worthless. So is my life. What about justice? Margot, in this city, justice is whatever's left after the deals are done. And you and I both know that. Down in the tunnel, Carl and Roy reach the ventilation shaft. One climb away, and they're in the subway. But Carl suddenly stops. What are you doing? Roy asks. I'm not going any further. What? You'll carry the case. Exit through the metro. There'll be a man in a red cap. Give it to him. Tell him, defrost the archive. You're staying? Roy panics. Someone has to close the final act. And I know how to play that role. Carl turns and walks back, into the dark. Frank moves forward through the tunnel. Suddenly, a shadow ahead. He flips off the safety. Raises his weapon. Carl! Freeze! Silence. Then, a voice from the darkness. If I wanted to kill you, Frank, I'd have done it 20 years ago. Frank steps closer. They stand face to face. Old friends. Old enemies. Between them, a history no one dares to speak of. Give me the case, Carl. It's not with me anymore. Then tell me what you really want. Carl tilts his head. I want people to know why we killed. And who we protected. And I want my brother's name to stop being twisted in reports. That won't change the past. Maybe not. But I won't let it become the future again. Frank takes a step forward. If I arrest you now, this ends. No, Frank. If you arrest me now, it begins. And at that moment, a gunshot. Someone else pulled the trigger. Carl drops to his knees. Blood. A choking breath. Frank turns, behind him stands a Special Forces agent. Target neutralized, sir. Frank lowers his head. Carl, lying on the ground, smiles through the pain. The window's open, my friend. Now let's see how you close it. Carl loses consciousness. A medical team takes his body away. He's alive, but in critical condition. Frank stands off to the side. Hands covered in blood. His eyes empty. Was that your order? Margot asks, appearing behind him. No. They acted preemptively. They or you? Frank says nothing. While Carl is transported to a hospital under heavy guard, Roy exits through the metro. Just as Carl said, a man in a red cap meets him. No words. Just a look. The case is passed. The man vanishes. Roy stands on the platform a moment longer, glancing around nervously. Then simply walks away, lost in the crowd. And an hour later, the thing everyone feared begins. 11:47 p.m., same day. Email inboxes of top journalists and independent media receive a file operation, dust veil, classified materials. The description reads, "This is not a leak. This is a cleansing." Independent platforms are first to respond. They publish parts of the documents. Signed contracts. Photos of bodies. Audio from briefings. And among the names, Frank Ross. Alongside public officials, senators, generals. The story explodes across all channels. The hashtag #DustVeil file starts trending. In government offices, panic. Some flee the country. Some hire lawyers. Some go silent. And Frank sits in his office. The phone won't stop ringing. Journalists. The Attorney General. His bosses. And former colleagues. "We told you it was a bomb," Margot says, walking into his office. "I knew. And you still let him pass the case." "I didn't let him. I just couldn't stop him." Margot sits across from him. Her voice calm, but her eyes sharp. "Now the question is, what will you do? Run? Wait to be indicted?" Frank looks out the window. At the clouds covering the night sky above New York. "I'm going to see Carl." 3:12 a.m. High Security Medical Center. Carl is in intensive care. Multiple gunshot wounds, but somehow alive. He's under full guard. Frank enters the room. He's alone. Unarmed. Carl, pale, but breathing. His eyes open. A smile. "So. You came. Came to look into the face of the man who burned the world. I just handed over the match. The rest was your fire." Frank sits down. For the first time in years, no anger, no rage. Only exhaustion. "You destroyed me, Carl. I freed you. I'm no longer a detective. Then now, you read just a man." Carl closes his eyes. And that's the scariest part, isn't it? The morning after the files are released. New York wakes up to a new reality. Raids sweep the city. Arrests. Interrogations. The headlines scream. U.S. Black Ops exposed, truth that costs lives heroes or executioners. High-ranking officials named Detective Frank Ross at the center of the scandal. At the White House briefing, the press secretary dodges specifics. An emergency session is called in Congress. And in the underground corners of the internet, Carl becomes a symbol. The man who broke the silence. Frank walks into the precinct. No badge. Eyes follow him, some with scorn, some with pity. But everyone knows, this is the end of an era. You can still run, says the old captain. We didn't see a thing. Frank just nods. I already ran, 20 years ago. Now, it's time to stop. He signs the resignation papers. No speeches. No goodbyes. At the hospital, Carl is moved out of ICU. Margot visits him. Now dressed in a plain coat. No makeup. Dark circles under her eyes. You did it, she says. They're calling you a system hacker. I just exposed what you all already knew. It's costing you your life. And silence would have cost me my soul. Margot stays quiet. For the first time, without a mask. I helped cover all of it. For years. Names. Records. Families. I know. Then why didn't you drag me into the light too? Carl looks her directly in the eyes. Because you still have a chance left. Meanwhile, Frank drives to an old, abandoned military base. Once, the place he and Carl served. Where it all began. He finds a crumbling memorial wall. Dust. Cracks. Forgotten faces. Among them, the name of Carl's brother. Sergeant Louis Edwardson. Kia. 2004. Frank runs his fingers across the letters. Then takes out his badge. Places it at the base of the wall. He says nothing. Just stands there. In a hotel room across town, Roy turns on the TV. A panel discussion. One journalist reads a quote from the archive. We don't fight for the truth. We just write it from the right side of history. Roy smiles. Let's see how they rewrite it now. He turns off the TV. Walks to his laptop. On the screen, several more encrypted cases. He opens the first. Titled Project, Silence Protocol. And beneath it, a date. The future. 3 days have passed. New York is changing, faster than usual. Politicians vanish from screens. Instead of ads, special reports. People no longer believe in silence. They seek noise. They seek names. Carl is in the hospital. He's allowed to walk now, but always under guard. Journalists wait outside every day, but no one gets access. He's been made a symbol, though he never asked for it. A nurse walks into his room. You have a visitor. Who? Frank appears in the doorway. No badge. No weapon. Just a jacket. Just a man. Just the past. I thought they wouldn't let you in, Carl says. I'm not a threat anymore, Frank replies. I just want closure. Carl nods. Is justice working? Not yet. But it's breaking through. And you didn't stop it. I stopped myself. No one else. They sit in silence for a few minutes. Then Carl pulls out a sheet of paper. This? I know, Frank says. Give it to someone who can still change the rules. I can't. Carl smiles. It's never too late. At the newsroom headquarters that first published the Dust Veil files, an editor opens a new set of documents. On top, the label Silence Protocol, Part 2. The footage shows elite meetings, conspiracies, funding for covert operations. This time, not the past. The present. The doors are open. A new leak. A new thunder. On the evening broadcast they show archival footage Carl and Frank, young, laughing on base, before the war. Over the image, the narrator's voice. This is not a story about crime. It's a story about what happens when the truth stays buried too long in the dark. Final shot. Margot stands on the rooftop of a skyscraper. She's on the phone. Next phase is activated. Risks? Asks a voice. There are always risks. But after silence, comes the storm. She hangs up. Looks out over the city. Smiles. Behind her, visible on the wall of a neighboring building, a massive mural of Carl's face. And beneath it, the words. Truth has a price. We paid it.